I grew up in Stretton on Dunsmore, near Rugby. My parents still live there. They've lived there for over 50 years now, and they're still the newbies of the street compared to one or two of their neighbours. So I thought I knew the village reasonably well. When we set up the Warwickshire website, however, I obviously had a nose at some of the photos we were putting onto it. The school's obviously changed, but I knew that. And there's the occasional clue in the name of School Lane anyway, which isn't where the school is anymore. There was a postcard, however, from the 1930s that caught my eye, and there's a nice little black and white Tudor house at the side of the road. Now, to begin with, I was wondering where that is. I asked my mum, and she said it wasn't there anymore. It had been taken away to Milton Keynes. She also said it was owned by a man called Mr. Parrott, and he had a lot of cats. Detail is everything here, obviously. So anyway, off the back of that, we can do a kind of visual timeline, which I'll do now. Here it is then, in the 1960s. This is still Stretton, and it's still before I was born. It can even go into colour, such as here. And this is a series of slides kindly donated to the Record Office off the back of a couple of articles I wrote for the Warwickshire website. There are also some close-up pictures of it. Here, meanwhile, is one that clearly shows the property has some issues at this stage of its life. Maybe, therefore, we shouldn't be surprised to see it like this in 2014. The same stretch of road, but obviously the house isn't there anymore, which is why I struggle to place a scene. So obviously it's been demolished, and at this point you might be thinking that this is a remarkably short and boring show and tell. Fear not, keep listening, keep watching however, because I want to make it long and boring. Anyway, we can still see the house in 2014, and here it is. So it hasn't quite disappeared. We can see it a little earlier as well, so here it is in the late 20th century. And of course, we can show it in 1975. So the house is now in Milton Keynes. So I found out some more information about its move by travelling to Buckinghamshire Archives. On the 10th of June 1975, the Milton Keynes Development Council wrote to Rugby District Council inquiring about the house in Stretton. It was made clear that if there was any possibility of the house remaining in situ, the corporation was not interested in removing the house. The reply from Rugby suggested it might be demolished, and an agreement was reached for the timber frame to be removed and re-erected. The demolition was agreed with Rugby District Planning Office on the grounds that it was going to a better use, but that proves to be a challenge. Potential uses considered, yet ultimately not coming to fruition, included re-erecting the house as part of a museum project, or as a pub community house at 2 Mile Ash. The plans to re-erect at 2 Mile Ash fell through, and instead the frame was stored at Bradwell Abbey. The frame was still at Bradwell Abbey in 1981, when a report on the building and its possible uses was written. So, When it was reviewed in the 1980s, the frame was found to be about 70% complete, including roof rafters. All timbers were salvaged, but some required repairing. The frame was used as part of a larger building, a detached family home. So, when it was taken apart, that frame was demolished with great care to ensure that it could be re-erected as easy as possible. On dismantling, the timbers were marked in paint and they were recorded to 1 in 50 scale. So there's some broad brushstrokes of the what, and if you want to read a bit more about that, you can on the Warwickshire website. But what about the why? So let's take a look at a couple of the pictures side by side. We can see clues it's the same building, it's got a similar style about it. There are, however, some differences. To my mind, the resurrected house in Milton Keynes looked rather new. I could imagine it being produced by a modern house builder. Maybe the fact it looks new is because there's a tendency towards mock Tudor in modern housing estates. So I'll give you a couple of examples here, and first we'll head for another Stretton on the edge of Burton-on-Trent. Then we'll go to Dunsmore, a suburb of Northampton. And then Leicester Forest East in, surprisingly enough, Leicester. To a degree, what we're doing here, we're heading for replicated individuality, where there are numerous postmodern references. There's a number of uses of architectural features such as Greco-Roman style design and Tudor black and white facings. So you can see the nod, even if gently, to the past that comes with the mock Tudor. The house is an extension of that, and you might very well be asking why you bother using an old structure if, to the uninitiated, you couldn't necessarily tell. Well, we're calling on not just the authority of the past, but the authenticity of it too. Using an old building creates the illusion of permanence, and this difference is constructed and maintained in the space by the act of naming. The house is called Stretton House as a nod to where it came from, so it's appropriating some of that cultural value that comes with its position in the village. Calling up that original 1930s photograph, it's a typical village scene really. Calls into view some of what we see as Britishness and tradition. If you have a look at the Warwickshire website, you can bring up plenty of similar pictures of streets with chocolate box houses. We'll have a look now at 3 of them. Now, permanence of place is important in maintaining its value culturally and economically. And what we're seeing here is an attempt to maintain distinction. This is important when we consider how people's attachment with a place increases the longer they and their ancestors have inhabited it. As it happens, this sense of attachment can be seen in Stretton and Dunsmore and the original site. Now, a few years back, Stretton and Dunsmore was under threat with the proposal of an airport greater in size than Heathrow. One of their campaigners, Dave Bonner, voiced the feelings of the majority of the residents who were determined to save their village. He voiced how place is not just bricks and mortar. And the campaign wasn't merely about the physical impact this airport would have. Instead, Bonner was talking about people who've lived in these villages all their lives, who can trace their ancestors back centuries. The emotional impact is equally massive and should not be underestimated. So this sense of attachment is only forged through the passing of centuries, and the visual manifestation of this effect is seen in the stereotypical English country village setting of Stretton on Dunsmore, with its buildings consisting of a variety of traditional black and white country cottages mixed with later Victorian cottages. We're forming that attachment in two places. The road of the bungalows, which were built in the house's place, is called Caysbrook Drive. Now I've walked past Caysbrook Drive time and time again, thought nothing of it. Didn't even realise that it's called Caysbrook Drive because that's the maiden name of a woman who married one of the parrots. The bricks and mortar aren't there anymore, but we're tying into this emotional attachment with a place by highlighting the names of ancestors. And this has been used elsewhere in the village. The new estate, as it's known, despite being built in the 1980s, uses names from the likes of Reverend Squires for its roads. The bricks and mortar may be new, but the sense of tradition and permanence is layered over the top. The places people live in are like the presences of diverse absences. What can be seen designates what's no longer there. So we can see the importance of ancestors and the sense of belonging to our culture if we look at responses to the house after it's demolished. Showing a care for its history and heritage, the relatives of Mr. Parrot are contacted in 1979 to say the house is in safe keeping. The house becomes more than bricks and mortar by association with its inhabitants and people's ancestors. Now, that sense of tradition as felt in Stretton on Dunsmore is not possible in a newly built housing estate, and this can cause problems where the aim is to attract new residents to fill the new houses. These residents will have no attachment to a place that did not exist previously. It's been said that such involvement with place is founded on the easy grasping in time spans of centuries. The older a place, the more depth it has. And this is where we can see why you might use the old timbers, rebuild an old house. Without this rebuilding, the house would have no history or background, and so consequently the community of people inhabiting the estate could not trace its historical lineage to the place itself. So the building and naming of the property acts as a substitute. If memories are what tie people to place, then appropriating the authenticity of age can work as a substitute, allowing for the association of the resident's new home with permanence, even if the estate itself is new. So, things change. Stretton on Dunsmore changes, but it's home. And photos reassure me that things stay the same really, whatever looks different today from yesterday. We have cultural echoes that, even if we're not consciously using them, they go into this sedimented construction of place, the need for a past, and the need for security that comes from a past that we try to fix, even as it changes. This all goes into how we construct place, and maybe more importantly, how we use it. The past can be important even in our everyday lives, so don't take it for granted. So that's basically where I'm heading. I hope you enjoyed this show and tell. Obviously, check out the Warwickshire website for more details of the house. Check it out anyway. It's a great website, but I would say that.